Afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. I have one item at the top, and then I promise this will be the world's shortest briefing, so hopefully we can go out and enjoy the afternoon. First, on Iraq, we congratulate Prime Minister Abadi and the Iraqi security forces for the liberation of Fallujah. This is a major step towards the total defeat of Daesh in Iraq. We do send our deepest condolences to the family and friends of the Iraqi forces who died in liberating the city. We do remain concerned about the humanitarian situation for Iraqis fleeing the fighting. However, we have seen significant progress by the UN and Iraqis in recent days to provide for the basic necessities of internally displaced persons. As we announced last week, we're pleased that the United States will host a pledging conference in Washington on July 20th in order to raise support for urgent humanitarian, stabilization, and demining needs in Iraq. The U.S. is joined in its leadership of this event by Canada, Japan, and Germany, as well as dozens of representatives from around the world in an effort to help the people of Iraq weather the humanitarian crisis and destruction wrought by Daesh. And that's all I have. Matt.
Actually, you don't have anything to add to what Secretary Kerry said earlier in London and Brussels about
I don't.
Britain
The Secretary spoke, extensively on Brexit as well as in Rome, so I'd leave his remarks.
Is there anyone in this building that you're aware of or interagency that's looking at this and how and the impacts that they will have on U.S. foreign policy, U.S. diplomacy?
Well, I think we all continue to take a look at this.
Is there some kind of a special task force?
I'm not aware of any special task force. No, Matt. Yep, Leslie, you're good?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you. So, are you confident that Fallujah is completely liberated now?
So we've seen the reports. I think DOD also spoke to this today. The Iraqis have spoken on this. Certainly it's a fluid situation, but the government of Iraq has said that all parts of Fallujah are liberated.
Have you seen media reports that the Shia militias, which played a huge role in liberating the city, have abused Sunni civilians? And what do you make of those reports?
So we spoke a little bit about this yesterday, and we'd note last week. We'd note the Prime Minister's comments. Prime Minister Abadi has been consistent on the need for all Iraqi forces to be under the Iraqi government's command and control. He's also publicly and repeatedly emphasized that Iraqi forces must take all care to protect civilians and property. I'm going to refer you to the government of Iraq to speak to that, but that's something we take very seriously.
There's one more Iraq question. Sure. The Iranian government has been shelling the Kurdish areas in the north, wounding at least 5 civilians, including children. Have you seen those media reports? And do you have any statement?
Thanks for the question. I've seen those reports. We're not in a position to confirm those. I'm going to refer you to the government of Iraq as well as officials in the KRG.
But if that happened, there are pictures of civilians.
Yeah, as I said, I've seen the reports, but I cannot confirm them.
Okay.
Okay, Saeed.
I just wanted to follow up on the situation for the civilians. There's something like 83,000 people. It seems that the humanitarian agencies were not expecting that many, and they are really in dire conditions. Is there any kind of sort of emergency efforts by the United States and by others?
Well, you saw our announcement last week.
I understand.
On the 20 million.
Right, but apparently there are a lot more people that are being placed in tents and so on right outside of Fallujah. A lot more than expected.
Yeah. So we are very aware of that. We're working very closely with the UN. As I said, we announced last week that additional 20 million. This is a situation that we take very seriously. I think the pledging conference will be an important next step as we take a look not only at stabilization but rebuilding that area as well.
Just one last follow-up on the alleged Iranian shelling of Kurdistan. Would that be like a major development as far as you're concerned?
Again, I just can't confirm it. As we had talked about, all I've seen are the media reports, so I'm not in a position to say one way or another.
But Iranian government has said, has confirmed that they're doing it, and they said they're going after the anti-Iranian Kurdish rebels. So the
So on
Iranian
that, I'm
government, the
gonna-
Kurdish government, they've both confirmed it, that that's actually taking place.
Then I'm going to refer you to the government of Iraq, and as I said, officials in the KRG to speak to it. Sure, Samir. Hi.
Hi. Did you see the remarks by the Iran Supreme Leader Khamenei inciting young people in Bahrain to revolt against the government?
No, actually, I didn't see those remarks.
Can we stay in the region?
Yeah, of course.
Syria.
Yeah.
There's been some developments in the case of Nabil Rajab. Do you know, what is your,
Yeah, we are concerned that Nabil Rajab will face trial for a series of tweets he published last year. The United States believes no one should be prosecuted or imprisoned for engaging in peaceful expression or assembly, even if considered controversial. We believe societies are strengthened, not threatened, by peaceful expressions of opinion and dissent. As the Secretary underscored to the Foreign Minister, we believe recent government actions against civil society will only lead to greater instability, with potentially serious implications not only for Bahrain, but for the greater region. And Roz, you wanted, sure, are you staying in Bahrain, Roz?
No.
Okay, we'll do say and then we'll
Right.
bounce over.
Very quickly, because
Sure.
there was an editorial today in the Washington Post basically accusing the government of inciting, and the royal family, of inciting sectarian rhetoric and so on, and violence.
I think I'll leave the comments where I left them, which is
But-
Secretary Kerry's comments last week to the Foreign Minister, Said. Go ahead.
Hi, there was a joint Al Jazeera New York Times report, rather I should say New York Times Al Jazeera report, alleging that some members of the Jordanian intelligence structure may have taken weapons intended for rebels fighting against the Assad regime and sold those weapons on the black market. What is this building's reaction? What conversations has it had with the Jordanian government? We all know that weapons turn up on the black market all the time, but given the complexity of the situation in Syria, it does raise some alarm bells.
Okay, so thanks for the question. We have no comment on that report. There is an ongoing investigation. The United States remains committed to Jordan's security and stability, and we're proud to stand side by side with Jordan in the global counter-ISIL coalition. But on that particular report, there's an ongoing investigation. I just can't speak to it, Roz.
The CIA does not comment either on its covert transfers of weapons, and yet it is a U.S. government policy. Who else should we ask about this?
As I said, I have no comment on that.
More of a policy. These weapons potentially ending up in the hands of extremists. Is it a consequence that the U.S. is willing to accept in order to prop up rebel forces in Syria?
As it's an ongoing investigation, I just don't have a comment on that report.
It's a policy. It's not the only red flag out there. For example, last September, the Pentagon acknowledged that the Syrian rebels that it trained gave at least a quarter of their weapons cache to al-Nusra. How many red flags do there have to be for the U.S. to stop arming rebels?
So we're going to leave it where I left it. Matt, you had a question?
yeah, who's doing the investigation?
It's actually an interagency investigation, but the State Department is contributing to it.
So what are the other agencies involved?
Yeah, I can't speak to all the different agencies, but it's multiple U.S. agencies. We're contributing information.
Well,
She does raise a good point. You know, that
hold on,
this-
hold on,
Sure.
just one thing. The White House was just asked about this in their briefing, right?
I believe they were.
Yeah. You know what they did?
They refused to comment on it.
No, they referred the questions to the State Department and to the FBI.
Yeah. So, and on this, I'm saying there's an ongoing
But
investigation.
you won't even say who's doing the investigation?
It's my understanding, it's interagency, it's multiple government aid. I don't have a rundown of who exactly. If I have anything more, we'll come back to you on that.
I'm going to hold
Hold
my
on 1
breath.
second.
How long should I hold it?
Probably not until the end of the briefing. Saeed?
I wanted to ask you, there were also allegations that these weapons were actually used to kill American trainers and so on in Jordan. Can you
Yeah.
comment on that?
As
You're not aware
it's
of it.
ongoing, I really can't say it. I'm sorry. Okay. Roz?
She was touching on a really good point.
Yeah.
Is there any reason why the U.S. government should be in the business of providing weapons to anyone who is not a part of a nation state's military? Because it seems every time that some rebel group gets its hands on U.S. provided weapons, they end up in the wrong hands. They end up being sold for, whatever on the black market. Is this something that U.S. foreign policy and military policy really should even be considering.
I know you'd like a comment on it, Roz. I just can't at this point. If we have more that I can offer on it, we certainly will.
But just in general terms,
Yeah, I
is this
can't,
just,
Roz.
is this
I'm
just
sorry.
really a good idea?
Say
Can I go to the Councilman?
it. Are we done? Nope, I don't think so.
No, but this isn't about that. This
Okay.
this is
Hold on,
somewhat
and then I'll
related.
go to you, Sayed.
Did you have any comment, or do you have any comment on the comments made Friday by the leader of Hezbollah that basically the Iranians are funding and supplying the entire movement?
So without getting into intelligence matters, I can say that we do believe sanctions on Hezbollah and those who support them have made a difference. We will continue to use all tools at our disposal, including sanctions, to target this group, which we have designated as a foreign terrorist organization. Our designations over the past year, designating Hezbollah procurement networks, financial, commercial front companies, and so on, have been highly effective. The Hezbollah International Financing Prevention Act, which we passed earlier this year, further builds on that. It's created a climate throughout the world where financial institutions are rejecting Hezbollah. We believe that this has had an impact on Hezbollah. We're seeing their response now.
Did you even hear the question that I asked?
I did. It was a question on asking about his comments on how we are cutting off the financial networks
Well,
around Hezbollah.
Yep, that wasn't my question.
Okay.
My question was about him basically admitting that the Iranians are paying and supplying them with everything.
Yeah, we believe that we have tightened the noose around Hezbollah, so they are no longer able to receive those funds.
You don't-
Cash.
You don't think that Iran is still supplying Hezbollah
Well,
because
no, what we're saying is we have seen those remarks, but we believe that through this financing act, we are reducing the scope of the money that can go in.
He's saying he's getting his money from Iran cash.
Yeah, and I'm going to leave my remarks where I left them.
I'm extremely confused. The administration no longer believes that Hezbollah is getting any significant financing from Iran
I didn't say that.
because of
I
the.
didn't say that. I said we believe that our sanctions are making a difference. We're not saying that it's a done deal. We're not saying there's not financing. We're saying, though, that significant steps have been taken to tighten that noose.
Well, yeah, on their financing from Iran.
Designating all of their networks to reduce their ability to receive funding. Yes.
From Iran?
We believe.
Solely related, look, it's been the position of, since successive U.S. administrations, that Hezbollah is Iranian proxy, that it does get. And so now Nasrallah comes out and says, yes, that's actually true. But you're not, and so I'm just wondering, you are saying that the U.S. sanctions that you put in place in Lebanon on Hezbollah have curtailed, significantly reduced, slightly reduced funding that the group
Significant.
gets from Iran.
We believe that's the case.
Okay.
On Lebanon?
Yeah.
Do you have any reaction to the suicide bombings against the
We
Lebanese
did.
army in Lebanon?
Yeah, thank you. The United States strongly condemns the multiple terrorist suicide bombings in the eastern border village of Kal, Lebanon. We offer our condolences to the families of those killed, wish a speedy recovery to those injured in the attacks. We applaud the efforts of the Lebanese armed forces to defend Lebanese territory against terrorism and protect the Lebanese people. We reiterate our strong support and commitment. We can.
First of all, do you have any comment about the rapprochement between Turkey and Israel?
Yes, we have. We welcome that.
Okay.
We've seen that. We think this is a significant step. It certainly adds to regional stability.
Now, let me ask you, during the meeting between the Secretary of State, Secretary Kerry, and the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, was the focus almost entirely on the Turkish-Israeli rapprochement?
So,
Because that's what some in the Israeli press are saying. That
so I
basically-
think you saw their comments after it. I've got a little bit of a readout too I can offer, so let me do that. So they had a good meeting. They discussed many different issues, but focused significantly on the challenge of beating back terrorism, specifically in respect to Israel's challenge in the Sinai and the Golan Heights. They did talk about the progress being made between Israel and Turkey. They talked about regional economic challenges as countries confront terrorism terrorism, and also how we can work together with other countries in the region to deal with those. And finally, they also talked about Brexit and how that might or might not impact all economies. So it was a wide-ranging meeting.
In other words, they did not talk about restarting the peace talks.
I think, in any meeting that the secretary has with the prime minister, the idea of advancing peace certainly comes up.
So you would say that it was peripheral in their discussion?
No, I would say, that's always a central issue that we discussed, but I would say it was very wide-ranging conversation, long meeting.
I want to follow up on a couple of things from last week.
Sure, of
On
course.
the issue of the Justice Ministry in Israel, Minister Shafir, I
Shafir.
think, said that they're going to introduce a much wider, more restrictions.
Yeah,
on
I
social
understand
media.
it's draft legislation.
Right.
So we actually looked into it. Certainly this building is following it, as well as Embassy Tel Aviv. In general, as you know, we support freedom of expression, free flow of information, regardless of the medium. We also, though, do condemn incitement to terror. But again, we understand it's draft legislation. We haven't really seen the final version.
And let me just
Hold
ask
on
you-
one second, and then we'll move.
Please, I just want to ask you about the United Nations has warned about the imminent demolitions of Palestinian homes and so on in refugee camp. I wonder if you have any.
Okay. As we have said many, many times, punitive home demolitions are counterproductive. They exacerbate an already tense situation. Okay, Turkey.
Yeah, you just commented on the rapprochement between Israel and Turkey, but what about the letter Turkish president has sent to President of Russia, Putin? It has been reported widely, in which he apologized for the downing of the Russian jet. As a NATO member, I want to know whether the Turks had consulted with you prior to sending that letter, and also what's your comment about the apology?
I'll tell you, all I've seen are the Kremlin spokesperson's comments, so I'm not in a position really to say either way. I'd refer you to the governments of Turkey and Russia to speak to it.
So did the Turks in any way, at any capacity,
I
consult
could
with the
not
United
speak
States?
to that. As I said, the first I've seen was actually out of the Kremlin on this. So if we have more, I'll certainly come back to you, but I have nothing more to add.
It does seem a bit unusual that you're willing to comment on the Israel-Turkey rapprochement, but you're not willing to comment on the Turkey-Russia rapprochement.
Well, it's a question that I've only seen the comments from the spokesperson, whereas on both sides, people have publicly stated
Okay,
this.
but I mean, the Turkish side has spoken and the letter is out.
Oh, okay. Actually, I didn't know that, so thanks.
India.
Let's do India, and then we'll move to Asia.
Do you have any update on about the India joining the MTCR?
I do. So thank you for the question. India demonstrated to all MTCR partners a sustained commitment to nonproliferation, and it has a legally based, effective export control system that puts into effect MTCR guidelines and procedures and administers and enforces such controls effectively. All 34 current members, including the United States, agreed India met this standard and that India's membership would strengthen international nonproliferation.
So there are reports that today at a ceremony India is being inducted into the group. Do you in the U.S. or somewhere? Do you have anything on that?
Actually, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Asia,
Do you have anything?
I'll let
on,
you guys sort it out.
Do you have anything on Deputy Secretary Blinken's meeting with the Vice Foreign Minister?
I do. Deputy Secretary Blinken met with Japanese Vice Foreign Minister Shinsuke Tsukiyama today at the Department of State. They did discuss bilateral and regional issues of mutual concern between the United States and Japan, as well as global cooperation.
Do you have anything specifically on what they discussed in
I
regards to
do
Brazil?
not. I think the meeting just ended. Hi.
Also on Japan.
Yeah?
Do you have any comment on the case over the weekend, I believe, the new DUI case in Okinawa?
You know, I just saw those media reports before I walked out. I'm going to refer you to the Department of Defense to speak to them.
Is there?
Yeah, I literally, I've only seen the news flash on that.
So on the Blinken meeting with
Sure.
the Deputy Foreign Minister?
Yep.
He was at a swearing-in ceremony at
With-
1:30.
It's Somalia. It's my understanding it
the-
happened right before.
So then the meeting didn't just end.
Well, Just end is a relative term. It's like you holding your breath, Matt.
Yeah, I'm still holding it, can you tell?
Yeah.
But I think that it's not out of line to ask for something
No,
more
fair enough.
specific than matters of regional.
Let me see what else I can get.
Mutual interest and regional concern.
No,
That's like
obviously,
you know,
Japan's an important ally. If we can get more, we certainly
it's
will.
like a Slork era readout.
Slork,
Yeah.
nice,
Former Burmese junta.
nice, thank you. I'm sorry, are we back on India?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Abigail, I'll come to you
I
next.
just wanted to clarify that when is there a deadline? Is there a date when India will join, or like your statement is that okay, India is
Well,
welcome.
you know what,
it has
I'd
done
refer you
everything.
to the group or in fact to India itself to speak
Okay.
about the accession protocol.
Thanks.
Abigail,
Do you have any comment on the report out suggesting that Russian intelligence and security services have been harassing U.S. diplomats?
I do. Over the past 2 years, harassment and surveillance of our diplomatic personnel in Moscow by security personnel and traffic police have increased significantly. Other Western embassies have reported the same thing. The safety and well-being of our diplomatic and consular personnel abroad and their accompanying family members are things we take very seriously. We have raised and we will continue to raise at the highest level any incidents inconsistent with protections guaranteed by international law. And we will respond appropriately in accordance with U.S. and international law. Yeah?
One of the incidents they describe is someone breaking into their home and rearranging their furniture. How pervasive is that sort of attack on U.S. diplomats?
I'm not going to speak to individual incidents that were in a media report. What I will say is that we see an increase and we take it seriously.
So this is
Yeah.
just in Moscow, or is this everywhere? Because the report seems to indicate that it's further afield.
So harassment of U.S. diplomats by host government services is a long-standing problem that does occur inside Russia. While we can't rule out such harassment that could occur elsewhere, I just don't have specifics on other countries to read out to you at this time.
The report indicated that the Russians feel that their diplomats have been similarly harassed. Is that true?
Russia's claims of harassment are without foundation.
So you said you take it seriously?
We do.
What exactly have you done?
Secretary Kerry has raised this with President Putin.
Is that it?
Well, and we continue to raise it on all other levels. You may recall in January, we also withdrew our acceptance of credentialing from 5 of the 6 Russian honorary consuls in the United States. This action was taken in response to continued Russian interference with our diplomatic and consular operations in Russia, including but not limited to this widespread harassment.
Those are the same honorary consuls who were just given an award? They're just given awards?
To
in
be
the
honest,
Kremlin?
I'm not tracking the awards now.
Okay, so when did Secretary Kerry raise this with President Putin, and does he raise it with Foreign Minister Lavrov as well?
I know he's raised it with President Putin. It's my understanding that this has come up. I don't have an exact date on that readout of when that
Would you say
came
he's
up.
raised it
Recently.
like the last time he saw him?
You know what, let me double check that
Okay.
and I'll get you an exact date.
All right, and it has come up with Foreign Minister Lavrov? as
It
well?
has.
It has not?
It has.
It has.
Leslie, you had a follow-up?
No, I wanted to know how recent was the last time?
Yeah, let me see if I can get an exact date. We may not be able to read out those exact dates, but I'll see what I can get for you guys. Okay?
No, we have one more.
We got one more and then we're good. That was
Venezuela.
pretty slick, guys.
Venezuela.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything new on this, but I'm wondering if you do have any updates on the case of Francisco Marquez, an American citizen who was arrested in
I
Venezuela.
do, thanks. We're aware of reports that a dual U.S. Venezuelan citizen, Francisco Marquez Lara, was arrested. He was charged with money laundering and public incitement. We take our obligation to assist U.S. citizens abroad seriously. We're providing all possible consular assistance. As in any country where a U.S. citizen has been detained, we expect the government of Venezuela to accord the U.S. citizen the full extent of his rights to due process under international and Venezuelan law.
Do you know, did the Venezuelan authorities notify you that he had been arrested?
You know, I don't know that.
Or if there has been a consular visit?
I don't know that either.
Okay.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
guys.